Hudson Valley Bookkeeping. In this video, I'm going to discuss why I think you should get QuickBooks Online for your private practice. All right, let's get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Laurie Ellison from Hudson Valley Bookkeeping. We specialize in mental health practices and QuickBooks coaching. Today, I'm going to talk to you about why I think your mental health practice needs QuickBooks. So I do a lot of QuickBooks coaching, and I speak to a lot of mental health practitioners about kind of their financial journey. And most are somewhat overwhelmed and are trying to, in addition to running their practice, they are also trying to do their bookkeeping. So if that's you, you don't necessarily need to be doing that. You could hire an outsourced bookkeeping company and or get some, invest in some lessons so that you understand what you're doing. But a lot of people I speak to are just using Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets. And that is not optimal for many reasons. And we will go over those now. Okay, so let's figure out this slideshow. So the limitations of the spreadsheet. If you're doing spreadsheets, first of all, you can't reconcile a spreadsheet. And you also can't run a report really quickly. It also requires manual data entry. And you're going to have to go find your credit card statement, pull your bank statement, and then enter in amounts into the spreadsheet. So it's a very manual process. The other thing is, I'm not the biggest fan of spreadsheets because I've seen so many times people mess up a formula and there's really no way to, unless you catch it, or sometimes I'll catch things because the number just doesn't really make sense, but you don't have that ability of, when you're in like a real accounting software. So if you were to do this, I would do it this way. I would create tabs for each one and then do a date and the amount, and who did you pay? And then you would have to total all of these up for each page and then create a summary page and hope that you remembered and clicked and got all of your totals. And I refuse, in anything, I usually throw any kind of project into accounting software because I know that it's calculating the things much more accurately than Excel formulas. But this is one way you could do it, but you're again going to have to manually pull all of your statements and then hand enter each one. You could also possibly download your bank and credit card, but again, you're adding so many steps to something that could be really simple. So I hope when you watch this, you realize that for a small amount of money, you can really, make your life a lot easier. So if you're doing this, I really think that it would be much easier, especially at the beginning of a year, to start a new QuickBooks file. Okay, so let's go back to the slideshow and see what I planned out here. Right, so the manual data entry increases your risk of errors. You can't create financials. Like I can go for one of our clients, and if they ever need a financial, as long as the transactions have been posted and the bank and credit card accounts have been reconciled, I can produce a profit and loss, a balance sheet. Anything they want to know about anything is very, very fast. You can't do that if you have Excel spreadsheets. You also can't compare 2023 to 2024 and compare like how much money are you making, or did your expenses go up a lot? You can't really do a lot of planning when you're working out of Excel. And if you're working out of Excel, it could be one of the reasons you're kind of putting off your bookkeeping because it's now, it's going to be so time consuming. You don't want to spend your weekends or nights now becoming a bookkeeper, right? Okay, so QuickBooks. Why do I think this is one of the most important things is your accounts really do need to be reconciled. You cannot, and that is where you track and prove that everything you have, either in your spreadsheet or in your accounting software, you need to tie that back to the bank. So that would mean if you're using the expense tracking software, you'd have to come up with like a special register and then follow along and keep your bank balance and then make sure everything cleared. So that would take hours in Excel, where especially with the bank feeds for QuickBooks, everything's coming in, and if you're adding the transactions through the bank transaction window in QuickBooks, you can see if your books match your bank, and it will show like you have $17,250, and your QuickBooks will say the exact same thing. So that means you're reconciled, right? It means your transactions are matching what the bank has. The secure syncing is the biggest thing. 20 years ago, you still had to pretty much hand enter all of the transactions that happened, and it was all hand entry. So it still took a long time. But now with the ability with QuickBooks to be able to talk to your bank, they are coming in as you are doing things. So if you collect insurance, that those deposits are posting in this this bank feed window, and all you have to do is click add, right? It has the correct date. It shows you the exact amount. And then you would just have to decide like, what is the category? And then it's that simple. So the syncing, and it also has an ability to create rules. So you can automate a lot of your transactions so that your bookkeeping time is much less. So again, instant financials, and I'll show this in a minute when I show the QuickBooks, but you are able to immediately run a report or compare it to, you could run something and say, I want to know what happened in December 24 versus December 23. Am I up? Am I down? Let me compare my years. You're really not going to be able to do that with Excel. It's going to be so hard to run the kind of things that you want, that I think a lot of people just say, they just give up and they kind of go blind regarding their practice. And that really does make a difference if you're trying to make certain decisions, about your finances. So again, the sooner you start tracking in QuickBooks, you can start comparing year over year. You can monitor your spending. What I like about it, and I use it for my business as well, is I check my QuickBooks connection to the bank each day, and then I see what is coming through, like on auto charges on my credit card. And I'm much more aware because I don't go on my credit card every day. I do check my bank accounts every day, but not necessarily my credit card. So I will see things like a recent one for me was GoDaddy. It was like a $700 charge, which was a lot of money. So, and I get so many emails, but I went in and logged into GoDaddy and saw what it was for and thought, okay, that's fine. But if it hadn't been okay, or something I didn't want to be renewing, it's just like another easy way to be monitoring what's happening at your bank accounts. We have for our clients, and this is like not something we guarantee, but like on some of our clients, we've seen odd charges that we've never seen before. And we reach out to the client and say, you never shop at this store. This seems odd. And it turns out it's fraud. So it's just easier if you kind of get into the habit of going in there. And then scalability. If your practice is growing, or maybe you're considering hiring an assistant, or maybe subcontracting, or bringing in a partner, whatever it can be, QuickBooks has other services that you can add on to it. So you could add payroll. It's a lot easier to figure out if you're doing a revenue share, or you have to pay someone, off of how much, they earned, or how many sessions they provided to patients. You have a lot more ability to figure these things out than if you're working off spreadsheets. Another thing I like to do is, depending on if you use an outside biller, or maybe you're using like Simple Practice on your own, you want to compare. We don't sync them. They don't work that way. And QuickBooks is not HIPAA compliant, so you can't bill patients and things. But you should be running a report that says, this is how much you got in from different insurance companies or private pay, because the QuickBooks is what happened at the bank account, and then you can compare it to your billing reports. They should be pretty clear, right? If everything's being posted correctly, they should be, I mean, not clear, they should be very close. So let's see. So definitely I would say this is the year you should work to get your finances in order. It can take the guesswork out of preparing for your taxes. So I talk to a lot of people too about this, right? They, um, I don't know, they're just waiting, dreading not doing their QuickBooks or their Excel or whatever report and system they have. And that's, I mean, that's normal, right? So the thing to ask yourself is, am I really prepared to do my bookkeeping? And if I'm not willing to keep it up on a monthly basis, maybe I really should outsource this and or, leave Excel spreadsheets and move into something that's more manageable. Okay, so now I am going to show you what QuickBooks looks like. So this is a demo file that I have created. This is only 10 months, but you can see how in this demo practice, you can see the difference of like how much money is coming in. Some months are a little less, some months are more. It's very helpful regarding the insurance companies. So the way I like to build the files is so that you can really track how much certain insurance companies are paying you. Because sometimes I've spoken to many mental health professionals, and sometimes they don't really have a good grasp of it, or they really aren't comfortable with their biller, and their maybe claims aren't really being submitted. I hear about a lot, and they're really not sure like how much money they're making from each insurance company. So the QuickBooks can be built this way so that it's very easy to tell. And then we look at other expenses like the credit card fees and outside billing. But with this, you're able to run a report really easily to see what is your net income, right? Now, this file doesn't have a lot of expenses in it, but so you could do it like this. You could run one for the month. And this is the most important report in my mind that you're looking at, is like looking at how much money did you bring in? How much money did you take out, right? So like if this is a solo, certain things like an owner draw, if it's an LLC, wouldn't show up on your profit and loss. The other thing I think is when people are trying to even obtain financing and anything like that, or you go to a new CPA, the CPA does not want to see your Excel spreadsheets. They really want something that is a true report where they know your bank account has been reconciled and your profit and loss is something they can easily follow to fill out your tax return. I hope this has been helpful. Please post any comments or requests for any other videos. If you're interested in QuickBooks coaching, you can reach out to us at hello@hvbookkeeping.com. There's also an ability to schedule a 15-minute consultation with me, and we specialize in mental health bookkeeping. All right, have a great day.